Okay, we're holding Erev Yom Kippurim. Let's try first, before we go to Kedushas HaYom, to understand the G'dayla of the Kedushas HaYom. Let's first try to understand what is the Avodah, which is mutal upon us. I'm going to go, you could say to how we've done in these shurim in the past. I'll be the Seder of Shulchan Aruch. All the halachas I share what you need to know for the Yom HaKadosh. The Shulchan Aruch, for those that are following along, is from Siman Tafresh Beis till Siman Tafresh Chaf Hey. It's about 22, 23 simanim. Let's see what we can accomplish and try to at least have all that we need for the Yontif, for the Yom Kippur, for the Yom HaKadosh. Now we should know what exactly is the Avodah Hamutal Aleinu. So first, the Shulchan Aruch in Tafresh Beis discusses, again, I'm not going in the order necessarily of Yom Kippur. We'll start from the Seder of Shulchan Aruch and get there, Mitzvah Shem, Kafi the Seder that the Shulchan Aruch took. First of all, a few Yediyas. We say Avinu Malkeinim every single day of the Aser Simei Tshuva. I'm being asked by many that, are you allowed to say Avinu Malkeinu b'Yachid? It's interesting. I never knew that it's really something discussed by the Poskim. The Das Torah actually discusses it, but L'maitz, it's Muvul Halacha that the Kitzur Shla brings down that you do say Avinu Malkeinu even b'Yachidus. It's a person that's unfortunately unable to be with a tzibur in these days. He would say Avinu Malkeinu, and therefore, if it's negayah somebody who's in a situation of where he's not able to go to shul, or if for whatever reason, he's not able to make it to a hafganah or such, so they would have to say Avinu Malkeinu by himself in the house. That's first and foremost. Another nekuda is that it's last night, the Poskim over here talk about the Poskim in Siman Tafresh Beis. They discuss making a chassan in these days. And the Poskim bring down, the Mat Ephraim brings down that the minig is not to make a chasana during these days. Kamuvan, these are days of I don't want to call them days of din, but they are certainly days of ema and pachad and not days of chasana. Maisa, last night, there was a couple on the block that they're supposed to be getting married after Sukkot. And Kafi the Matziv, I was matzia to them that they should get married. And I think tonight they're getting married, and it could be that I'll be Masar Kedushin soon because of the situation that's taking place. To push off a chassan in this matziv is it's probably not kedai. So basically, this is my only chance of people taking me to be Masar Kedushin because I hang out with Younger Light all day. What could you do? Akapanim, but the Maisa Avada Kamuvan, if it's a Shatzot Chak, I looked it up and I found Tak in the Mat Ephraim that the Mat Ephraim brings down that Tak in Shatzot Chak, you certainly could make a chasana during the Aser Simei Tshuva. The Gabe the meaning of saying Kiddush Levana and the Gabe the meaning of buying the Daled Minim. This year, I'm being matziyah to everybody that no matter what your minig is certainly to taka by the Daled Minim and certainly to be saying the Kiddush Levana, Kiz mi yeda mayula dyoim. Who knows what it'll be? And fakert, maybe, even though there's always a fight that maybe a person should be concentrating on tshuva and maybe a person can't say Kiddush Levana with the proper hergation because he has a pachad and whatnot. But this year, who knows if you'll be able to be with 10 Jews to be able to say Kiddush Levana? Who knows if you'll be able to be with 3 Jews? And who knows if the person, who knows? So therefore, if I care, the biggest chus is showing Kodesh Baruch Hu that we won't be mavater on a mitzvah. And therefore, mistam, in my opinion, avada, these are things that are probably bigger people than me should decide. But my opinion is that a person should certainly these days be doing the minig, being Kain his Daled Minim, worrying about his Daled Minim, and certainly, in my opinion, he should be saying Kiddush Levana. Ad Kan Siman Tafresh Beis. Tafresh Gimel, the Aser Simei Tshuva. Again, these parts I'm obviously going to go faster on. In the Aser Simei Tshuva, so there's minhagim not to eat paspalter, not to be eating. Obviously, this means that a person shouldn't have Cheerios in these days, even if the rest of the year he eats Cheerios. But these days he shouldn't, because even though it's kosher, but it's not Pas Yisrael. All types of cookies that people eat from the OU that are not Pas Yisrael during these days, he shouldn't be eating. But let me read you from the words of the Hilchos law. The Hilchos law, the Elef HaMagen brings down the words of the Arizal. What's more important in these days is that the makor of eating Dafka Pas Yisrael comes from a lashon of the Yerushalmi brought in the Torah that Rabbi was makbid to eat chulin b'tayra during these days. And the Shla brings that we don't have chulin b'tayra. So the Shla brings the words that Yesh La'adam Lizoyer Lechos B'yomim Elu Binyoni Atayra. During these days, a person is not able necessarily to eat chulim b'tayra because we don't have it noyeg, it's leinu chulim b'tayra. But certainly, he has to make sure that he's noyeg binyoni atayra. And therefore, if he has to be noyeg, that means in Tyra Samachshava. He talks about mikvah over there. Today, we're going to probably tell people dafka not to go to the mikvah. So then what he has to do is he has to take his seichel and put it into a mikvah. The Rambam says, Eisek HaTorah is the ikar Tyra Samachshava. And these days, the way to be matayr his brain is through Torah Kedosha. He has to be matayr his brain. He has to be matayr his machshavas. And that's really the ikra avodah of these days, is to go into the world of tahira. Any of the chumras that he takes on during the Seres Tshuva, he doesn't have to worry that they're chal on him as a neder, because it's understood that they're dafka for the Seres Tshuva. Right? We're going to talk about the mikveh in a moment, Rabbi Fischel. But any of the chumras he takes, he doesn't have to say bli neder, but it is kedai to say bli neder simply because you don't know which things that you're doing, which are chumrah, which are not really necessarily a chumrah, and that some places can hold that they're asr min adin, and therefore you would be getting into a greater shaila. That's Siman Taf Reish Gimel. Before I continue, does everybody see me properly? Because I set up the video camera differently. Everybody sees me properly? You see the kedusha is radiating or no? Rabbi Sher, you're not able to see the kedusha? Okay. Now, the Siman Tov Reish Dalet discusses the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur. Like the mitzvah of eating on Erev Yom Kippur, the Mishabur brings down the mitzvah min Torah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. This Sunday there'll be a mitzvah min Torah to eat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give us schar for eating as if we fasted. He wants to be Maila Aleinu as if we taka our fasting. It's the same milah. The eating should have the same milah of the fasting. And this is why the place can be even discussed, the Steichemet, others, why is it the Beisharim? How come we don't make a bracha on the eating on Erev Yom Kippur? And they say that the only time that we have a mitzvah of eating is when it's nicker. What does that mean when it's nicker? For example, matzah, maror, it's nicker that you're eating. Machenkin on the Shabbos Suda. You don't make a bracha on the Shabbos Suda because the person would eat anyways. So therefore, it's not nicker that he's eating l'shay mitzvah. Balkapanim, it's a mitzvah min Torah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. There's a shaila if ladies are chayiv on the eating on Erev Yom Kippur because the lady, maybe it's a mitzvah to say she has man grandma, or do you say that since she's mechuyev in the fast, so since she's mechuyev in the fast, maybe she has the mitzvah of the eating on Erev Yom Kippur, which its purpose, according to many Rishonim, is to give the person the koyach in order to fast. This is a fight. The might say that women should eat. However, if you have a lady who is not fasting because, for example, she's right after birth or something, or she's a chayla, so then Mamanashach, she doesn't fast. Mamanashach, she doesn't have to eat because either it's not going to give her the koyach for the fast, or because she's a lady and it's a mitzvah to say she has man grandma, but the maisa, there's no shayla that it's a mitzvah yikara, and that you should go out of your way. Ksav Seifert says that cheshbon I just made about ladies, you should go out of your way to be eating this big machlekes. If the machlekes, the shla, the goyin, if on Motzei Shabbos there's a mitzvah to eat, but regardless, this Motzei Shabbos for sure, I'm sure everybody's makbid on malava malka with bread, but this Motzei Shabbos for sure you're going to be malava malka with bread, because number one, you want to do on a Seres Tshuva, you want to do perfectly. Number two, there might be a mitzvah of eating on Motzei Yom Kippur, and therefore, Maisa certainly you have to have a malava malka in the best type of fashion, best type of oifen. What is the actual eating process on Erev Yom Kippur? So it's a big machlekes in the minhagim. In the minhagim, exactly, the Minchas Chinuch discusses it in Siman Shin Yud Gimel. Are you supposed to be drinking? Some say that you have to eat the amount that was asur on Yom Kippur, which means that if you have to eat the amount that was asur on Yom Kippur, then what you're supposed to be doing is having at least a shear of Keseves Agasa and a shtia Kedei Revius, Keseves Agasa within Kedei Chilas Pratz. You're supposed to be eating in that type of fashion. Might say the minig of others, they bring down, Sefer discusses this, is really just to be eating lots of achilas. The Ksav Sefer writes that you should have lots and lots of different achilas. The Ksav Sefer is in Siman Kuf Yadalid. He has a nice truva about these in Yonim. And he's supposed to be eating lots of achilas. There were the Brisker Rav would eat the whole day. He would have candies the whole day. I'm going to talk about IV in a moment, Be'ez Hashem. There were tzaddikim that the whole entire day they would have candies, they would have raisins. I think the Ksav Sefer had a minig that he would have raisins. By us, we might be over on Seder, but upon him, it definitely was annoying in Klal Yisrael to be eating the whole day, to have candies, etc. what's the question of Fleishik and Malav Malka? I'm saying if he has a Fleishik and Malav Malka, it's a good tazach to have a Fleishik and Malav Malka. You're not mechuyev to have a Fleishik and Malav Malka, but it's a good tazach. It is a good tazach. If a person knows he's going to have Malav Malka and he's not going to enjoy it unless he has a pizza, so then why shouldn't he have a pizza and enjoy it? Now the gabe, the mitzvah of eating. So the way it is, the minig of Klal Yisrael is that they're kaveh 2 sudas. One, you have a suda, like a suda Shabbos, Yontif. Some even do Olech Mishnah, and they wear big day Shabbos, etc. And you should be marben achila during that suda, certainly. That's the lashon of the paiskim, to be marbe. And then during that suda, there's an Indian tafka to have fish, because the Medrash brings down that there was a certain tzaddik that bought fish, Erev Yantiv, and he was zeicha to find a margolius inside there that was mefarnasim for the whole entire year. Others have a minig to have the kreplach. Don't forget the kreplach. Davka, you're supposed to have chicken and not supposed to have meat, that Mr. Brewer talks about. And that's really, I'm not even talking now about the Sudas Mafsekes. That's the Suda that minig Klal Yisrael to have a Suda during the day sometime. Usually you have it before Mincha. You're supposed to have in that Suda, you're not supposed to have eggs, you're not supposed to have garlic, you're not supposed to have milchike products that make a person tired, and marbar bezera, etc. No, versteht sich, if a person needs a coffee, versteht sich, there's a makim for him to. Now, the Gabi the Lechem Mishnah, if you don't have that minig, you don't have to do the minig for Shteitzach. But there is a minig out there that some people do have Lechem Mishnah. I think it's a Chassidish minig, not a minig that's Mechayev others. That's Adkam Siman Tov Reish Daled. Mitzvah Hashem. In a moment, when we get there in Siman Tov Reish Ches, we'll talk about the Sudas Mafsekes. But that's in my Indian. Tov Reish Hey is the minig of Kapparas. This year, I think people are afraid to go out and to be, slugging the kapadas and taking the chickens and throwing them around because, they're faced that the chicken lachat corona oichet. I don't know. So most of the oilam is probably going to do it with money. Some of us, that's our minig anyways, is to do it with money. And the various minhagim, we're makbid to do it for the men, for the ladies. We do it for babies. We do it for the ladies that are pregnant. If there's twins, we do one that's a zachar, and we do one that's in a keva, unless there's an ultrasound. The Maisa, I'm not going to go so into it. I think most people are going to do with money. There's no official amount. When I was growing up, you're supposed to, they would do 18 shekel, $18 in New York, and America, in Eretz Yisrael, you do 18 shekel. I guess in England, you do 18 pounds. In South Africa, I guess you can't do 18 rand because then they owe you money. So I don't know, but there's no official number. There's no official number, but L'maisa, Adarabba, the more he's marbin stuck on Erev Yom Kippur, there's no shaila. That's a schusulai. But again, what's nigga has to know is if a person has a wife, is pregnant, so then you do also for the baby. You're also supposed to do a kaparis, you slug the kaparis also for the baby. The Mishnah Berurah brings over in Tavei that vada the minigs to be marbin staka, and it's all a gavaldik erev Yom Kippur. You're supposed to be marbin staka, and when you hear the car going around and collecting money for this vada rabbanim and that vada rabbanim, so then you don't just assume, other people are giving the money. You go out and you give the money, and you get a grace chutz for the Yom Adin, for the Yom HaKadosh. The Gabi going to Beis HaKfaris, it's a big shaila. Yavitz is metama that there should be a minig bichlal on going to the Beis HaKfaris in erev Yom Kippur, because erev Yom Kippur is considered a yontif. So this year, certainly, I don't think anybody's anyways going to the Beis HaKfaris because of the matziv, and therefore, l'chayra, we'll skip that minig. Siman Tov Reish Vav is the minig of being mefayis chaveiro on erev Yom Kippur. That means before Yom Kippur comes in, you have to be clean. And I hope and pray to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that the chidah is incorrect. And I pray to God that it's not true. But the chidah writes over here in the beginning of Siman Tov Reish Vav that a person that didn't get a piyas on erev Yom Kippur from his friend that he heard, who's maybe not so much his friend, but he didn't get a mechila in a situation where he requires a mechila from a friend. So then if the ben Adam, the Chavera was not taken care of, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu was not moichel on the Ben Adam L'makon. That's what it says in the Chidah, that the Ben Adam L'makom are not niskaper unless you get a clean slate, which means you're also niskaper on the Ben Adam L'Chavera. And I hope and pray that the Chidah is not halach l'maisa. But that's what he says over here in Siman Tov Reish Vav and Sivkot Nalef in the Birkei Yosef. So you really have to go out of your way to be maver sinner from yourself, from others. And you have to make sure that others don't have sinna alecha. And Rabbi Isai, as Vasemis in Yuma brings down, even if your friend has a kepeda and he's not right, but if he has a kepeda, sometimes he's not only not right, but his kepeda is an issertik kepeda, but sometimes he's overly sensitive. That's mistama what the Sfas Emes is talking about in Yuma Dapei Vav, is sometimes a person can be overly sensitive. And yes, an overly sensitive person, you do have to ask mechila from. And some of them are your parents, and some of them sometimes could be siblings, and some of them could be your wife, and all different things. Some of them could be a Rabbi. And all these people, you definitely have to ask mechila from the Ben Ish Chai in Parshas Vayelech and Ois Vav. He says you have to be mevakish mechila from your parents, from your wife, from your abayim, from everybody. You have to be Maisa. Anybody who's watching me right now, I'm Michael you. Yes, I'm going to get 45 messages now. So I'm Michael every single person that's watching me. B'kol Makayim Shehem, and I'm Michael all the Tamidim. There's no question you don't have to call me and call the other abayim. But Al Kapanim, there's clearly that person does call his parents, and he does have to do this, and he has to call his, maybe even his boss, maybe even his boss. Certainly, you have to take care of this. I'm not going to be myrich on this because it can be myrich for days and days and pages and pages. And unfortunately today, Lida, most people, they just send out a text, are you meichel me? What's it called? Like a BCC or something. And they send it to like everybody they know. And then Gveinlach, he thinks that he's all clean. Right? I don't know. I know. No way. Absolutely not. Don't be achzarias yaser midai. Certainly, if somebody asks you mechila, be meichel them. Life is too short. If somebody asks you mechila, avadi meichel them. Life is too short. Why shouldn't you be meichel? If a person asks 3 times, somebody called me up today and he told me he asked mechila 3 times from the person. I'm a little bit mesupik because the Shulchan Aruch that says 3 times, he says ubekol pam, you should take with him 3 anoshim. He should take 3 people with him whenever he asks mechila. It's a lashon over here in the Paiskim. So this person didn't take 3 people with him. So he told me it's not negay to take 3 people. It's going to be more embarrassing if he takes 3 people. Lamaisa, once you asked 3 times, you did yours. And there's a chazaka, he's not going to be meichel. You did yours. And you no longer have to worry that the Yom Kippur will not be mechaper for you. One of the reasons you have to ask is to be machniya yourself. And therefore, it's not enough to just rely on the tefillah zakah. You have to actually be machniya yourself. And you do have to ask. But certainly, everybody should make sure that he says the tefillah zakah and make sure he says that paragraph. Try to say that paragraph, or Michael try to say it before Yom Kippur, so that all of Klal Yisrael should have a kapara before Yom Kippur. Certainly, this is a good schus. It's a great schus. The Mishnah Berurah, in a very rare place, a very rare statement, the Mishnah Berurah says that the Rebbeinu Shalom, he tells you, how does God work? All the people that say, I don't know how God works. I didn't know how God works. I don't know. The Mishnah Berurah says, I know how God works. I know how God works. Sagt our Rabbi the Chafetz Chaim, God works midah connected midah. And if you're Michael, God will be Michael you. Chafetz Chaim, it's a Gemara, but the Chafetz Chaim paskins that Gemara la'alocha. It's in Taf Reish Vav in the Shar Tzion. So therefore, be Michael. Life is too short, and then God will be Michael you. There's all other things. Again, yes, when a Jew comes over to you and says, "Are you Michael me?" Don't be that idiot. You know the idiot. Oh, you don't even have to ask me. You don't even have to ask. He just wants you to say the words, I am Michael you. That's it. That's what every Jew wants to hear. What do you have to ask? Just say the words. We all know the Rabbeinu B'chaya by Yosef Atzadik. He didn't say the Just say the words. That makes every Jew feel good. You tell him, I'm Michael you, and I love you, and I hope you're Michael me, and never do I want to have anything between us. He wants to hear the words, I'm Michael you. So join the taifa and say, I'm Michael you. And Chalila, not to be Achzarias, Yosef Midai, and not to be Michael. There's no greater Achzarias than to not be Michael. Sometimes somebody did something, Oyim v'noira, etc. So it has to be dealt with. I'm asking, right? But a person Ayid that comes to you 3 times and he tries to ask for Mechila, life is too short. Sometimes there's greater inyanim involved. There's Kavod HaTorah involved. Sometimes there's Bizayin HaTorah involved. Sometimes there's monetary inyanim involved. So you have to ask Shilas. Now, the Mishnah Berurah over here discusses what happens if you're going to ask somebody Mechila, and they asking that person Mechila, you're going to give him Agmas Nefesh and pain. Because he didn't know that you spoke Lashon Hara about him. He didn't know that you did this terrible thing to him. So it's a big fight between the Mishnah Berurah and Rabbi Sol Salanter. Mishnah Berurah goes, you do have to ask a Mechila. You got to get a Mechila. Rabbi Sol Salanter says, because you need a Mechila, you're going to go and hurt this person and tell him that you spoke against him. It's a terrible thing. So the Mishnah Berurah over here, I think, has the answer to Rabbi Sol Salanter, is that you don't go over and say exactly what you did. What you do is you talk in a much more klalistic fashion. You talk in a more klalistic fashion. You say, life is too short. Life is too short. And, let's be friends, make amends. I don't know, our lives are intertwined. Our lives are intertwined. Mistama, there's stuff between us. Let's be moichel each other. You say it like that. Most people in Yom Kippur, he says the word amoichel, even though he doesn't know exactly what you did. I don't know if that goes into the Gedarim of Darim Shabbalev. Most of the time, there's an umda he doesn't want to know, and he'd be happy. Rabbi say, we don't know what goes on in the kitchen in the restaurant, and we don't want to know. Rabbi say, I'm happier to not know what went on in the kitchen in the restaurant. I don't want to know when the piece of meat fell on the floor, and I'm also not interested to know that that oversized fellow with all the bugs in his hair, and he's taking a fork and he's mixing around, and then he goes, I'm not interested in knowing that. I just want to eat my food. And that's okay. I think it's the same thing when it comes to Mechila. I think most people, if he doesn't know and he's going to get hurt, and he's happier not to know. He's happier not to know. And then you tell him, Maisa, we have a life that's together. I'm sure we do things together. We have inyanim together. So maybe we'll just be moichel each other. Maybe you'll be moichel me. And that's the best way to do it. And that answers up Rabbi Yisrael's shaila. That answers up Rabbi Yisrael's salam. Okay. If a person was nifter and you have to ask him mechila, the poskim say, even if you asked him 3 times, the chayav, but you have to ask him again. Even if he wasn't Michael, obviously, if he was Michael, you don't. But if he wasn't Michael, so you have to ask him Achar Moisai. Achar Moisai, he knows the emes, and he knows life is too short, and he's going to be Michael you. So then you do have to go to the base of Kvaris and bring 10 people to ask Mechila. God be going to the mikvah, Shechanarach Siv Dalid. I don't know. I don't know, Rabbi say. I don't know. Who could take a chayes to go to the mikveh? I don't know. I can't take a chayes. Whoever wants to go to the mikveh, I don't know. If you can get a private mikveh, but just remember, somebody called me on Erev Rosh Hashanah. He said, Kallus, I'm letting you come to the mikveh. It's a private mikveh. I got all excited. And then as I'm going over there, I said to myself, wait a minute. He knows that I'm in bidud. He knows I'm in quarantine, and he knows I have a corona bag in the house. Who else is he going to be letting into this mikveh? Right? So I called him up. So I said to me, no, Rak Rabbanim, only the Rabbanim. Right? I told him, but I'm in bidud. The other Rabbanim know that. He goes, again, don't worry. Most of them are also in bidud. I said, okay. So I don't know. It's a nice gesture. I appreciate it. I thanked him. I told him maybe Erev Yom Kippur. Let's see what the matzah is. Tough shouldn't pay bays. But I can point him. I don't know. I don't know. So make sure you go take a shower for a few minutes. You do teach a cabin. What could you do, Rabbi say? Let's already know. I don't know. So let me go weiter. I'm not going to go into the inyanim if ladies are toivel, because even the men, I don't know if she should be toiveling, and certainly the ladies certainly shouldn't be toiveling during the day. I'm talking about, for this minig, when the whole minig is not such a pasha desach. So let me get weiter. The person says vidui, he's going to say 10 viduyim. He's going to say 10 viduyim over the course of the Yom Kippur. The idea of these viduyim, Rabbi Yisai, is that now on Yom Kippur, he comes to a new akara, and a new akara, and a new akara, and a new akara. And it's a different level. And therefore now he's a person that has 10 hours of Yom Kippur behind him who's saying vidui. And then he becomes a person that has 24 hours of Yom Kippur behind him. Now he's saying vidui. It's a whole different person saying vidui. It's a different experience. Where do we say the vidui? Shabur brings down, we say Yularotzin, and then we say the vidui. The only Gayin's minig was not like that. He would say the vidui, and then Yularotzin. I'm talking about the first Yularotzin, and then Yularotzin, in order that it should be a chelik of the Shemoneh Esrei. If you don't have this minig, most of Klal Yisrael do not have the minig, and they do say Yularotzin, and then afterwards say the vidui. If you say the vidui before the Yularotzin, and then it comes the point of where there's the Kaddish and Kedusha, so then you should probably say Yularotzin in order to be able to say Kaddish Kaddish, and in order to say Yeshmei Rabbah. A person that forgot to say vidui, so then he doesn't have to redaven the Shemoneh Esrei. If he forgot the vidui, so he'll just say the vidui without the Shemoneh Esrei. So too, if he forgot the Melech HaKadosh, and he did say the vidui, when he repeats the Shemoneh Esrei, he need not say the vidui again. One of the vidui we tried to attach to the Shemoneh Esrei, but if we were not successful, so we need not be chayzer. You're supposed to, according to the Shittas Ramban, the Iker vidui is right before Yom Kippur, after the Sudas Mafsakas, and that we're Makayim in with Tefillah Zaka. Sounds to me like L'chayr should stand when he says that part. Sounds to me like L'chayr should stand. It's a part of the Tefillah Zaka that we say, that we ask Rabbi Shalai Mechila, and we do vidui. L'chayr should stand during it. I'm not sure if that's the minig, but I don't know. L'chayr should stand, and that's the Iker. That's L'chayr, the Iker vidui, according to the Ramban, is right after the Sudas Mafsakas. Right before he goes into the day of Yom Kippur, that he should come in clean. He should come in rain. He should come in all clean. The person has his own al-chaitz to add, so then he should add them. Does he have to say all the viduyim? I saw last year the child diving behind me. It was like a 7-year-old boy, and he was saying the chida's viduy over there, and he was talking about all the arayas that he's boil and everything. I don't know. I don't know. I got nervous sitting next to this kid. I don't know. So, but you should look through these viduyim of the chidah, of the chayodam, of the chreinim. Look through them, and then take out a few and see what's negay you, and then to be mefaret them for you, and then there definitely is an inyan, and you put it into the aleph base. It makes it a bit more real. It certainly makes it more of a gasha. We must remember the words of the Rambam. Umaya tshuva. Tshuva says the Eilika Rambam in Perik Beis, Hilchos Tshuva Halacha Beis. Hu yazei v'chaytei chaytoi v'yaser machshavasa v'yigmer b'libay layase oy. At least on Yom Kippur, by side. On the Yom HaKadosh, he's able to say these, I don't want this life anymore. It's loy shave lanu. What's the ikar of the charata? Loy shave lanu. Crime does not pay. And then he says, I'm not interested in these averas anymore. I don't want to be the person that when I walk into the room, late Sonis walks into the room. I don't want to be mevatel Torah anymore. I don't want to speak Lashon Hara anymore. I don't want to look anymore where Jewish eyes shouldn't look. And I feel bad about it. And the Rebbeinu Shalom knows. Right now, I would never do that Aveira. That's what a person has to be able to say. The person feels like what's going to be in 2 months and 3 months. Rabbi say, worry about 3 months when it happens. Worry about 3 hours when it happens. But right now, you put yourself into the ideal situation. You say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I don't want to look where Jewish eyes should not look. That's what I want. And the Rebbeinu Shalom can be made on me that I won't do it. I won't do it. And then that'll be moil for the person. But he has to try to be somewhat emistic, says the Hilchos Rambam. He should have kavanah before he does the vidui that he's being mekayim and mitzvahs asay min ha-Torah to be mazvade on his chatoyim. And he should say the vidui with kavanah. I should say the vidui with kavanah. I should say it slowly. I should say it with thought. A person that's weak, especially this year, some people with corona, they're mamish very, very weak. And it's hard for them to get out of bed, and it's certainly hard for them to stand. He has to at least stand during the words, Aval anachnu of Avaseinu Chatanu. Certainly, the Chetchila is supposed to stand during the vidui. If there's no breira and he's not possible, he should at least try to lean. Obviously, a person that can't, obviously. But obviously, he should go out of his way to try to stand, at least during the Shamnu, and if he can't stand, at least during the Talin, and if he can't even do that, at least to stand during Aval Anachnu V'Avaseinu Chatanu. That's what he has to do. Binyan the Malchus on Erev Yom Kippur. So, I don't know, I got to saw it, and it was one of these traumatic experiences that I saw, and I saw a very weird thing. Some people have this minig of the Malchus, but then I saw such a weird thing. I saw a Rebbe, but like a Rebbe, like a Chashav Rebbe. And I saw it, I couldn't believe it. He had there the Hoizbacher, the Talmud, and he told the Talmud to give him Malchus. And then the Talmud didn't know what to do. I don't know. The Makor Chayim, my Zayda, the Chavis Yair says, Chas v'shalom, the Talmud is never supposed to hit the Rebbe. The Rebbe is supposed to hit the Talmud. But the Talmud's never supposed to hit the Rebbe. So I don't know. Okay. If anybody would like me to that, it says me first that the Rebbe could hit the Talmud. So if anybody would come, so then I'll wear a mask and I will, what's it called? And I'll wear gloves. I'll wear gloves. that way, if there's any blood, that it won't have any problems beside the corona. Siman Tov Reish Ches. Siman Tov Reish Ches in Sif Aleph over here talks about making sure, obviously, that he finishes before the shkia. That goes without saying, but what's more negeya is that a person should be makabel on himself the amira bepeh, the mitzvah of Tosefes in Kippur, to be moisif michayil ala kedesh. And not only that, according to some, that's mamash a mitzvah deraisa, and then he should be makabel on himself the other inuyim. But when he does this, he must make sure that he doesn't do it before he washes his mouth out. He wants to be able to wash out his mouth. And then if you makabel the tinus and you makabel everything, you won't be able to wash your mouth out. So you make sure before benching, you say, I'm not makabel the fast yet, in order that right after benching, he'll be able to brush his teeth, he'll be able to wash out his mouth, he'll be able to maybe splash his face with water one last time. Right? That's the chayah. L'gabe the shechiyanu, sometimes a lady, this year it's not as negeya because I don't know how many of the ladies are going to be driving to shul and whatever, but a lot of times a lady, she doesn't want to be makabel Shabbos, so she makes it snai. So, but in Yom Kippur, you can't make it t'nai if you're going to say shechiyanu. So if she's going to say the shechiyanu, she can't make it t'nai. So she can only make it t'nai that she's not accepting the yontif if she plans on not saying the shechiyanu and then saying the shechiyanu in shul with the men. That's is l'chayra. That's is l'chayra. Okay. Now, again, I told you we'd get back to the Sudas Masekes over here in Sif Daled and Tafresh Ches. It discusses what to eat at the Sudas Masekes, not to eat eggs, not to eat basar behema, not to eat you're supposed to eat taka, yes, supposed to eat chicken, not supposed to drink wine, says the Mishnah Berurah, not supposed to drink beer, not supposed to eat spicy foods over here. The dicker is you have chicken, stomach, maybe, the things that are lighter and bread, challah, akoponim, right? And to make sure that he has koyach for the Yom HaKadosh. In Siman Tov Reish Tes, it talks about not being matmin, It talks about not being matmin. Excuse me. It talks about not being matmin the food on to heat up the food for Moitzi and Kippur, but usually for us, it's not really negeya. For us, what's more negeya is when we're doing it for children. So therefore, a person that wants to put on hot food on a hot plate or something for his kids, so then it's mutter. So Tafresh Tes, we learned Tatmana. Here's a whole different anhaga. They're not supposed to be matmin food, that they should be ready on Moitzi and Kippur. It has to do with different anhagas. Maybe different chashas. But for children, it's mutter, and therefore, if you want to set up a hot plate, it's mutter. We got a hold that there's different shilas in the paiskim if food is muksa, are you allowed to touch food, etc. The ma'aseh for children and everything, it's all mutter. It's all mutter. The Gabe Siman Tov Reish Yud is talking about the adlakas ner. We, the Ashkenazim, light a ner for Shabbos, for Yontif, for Yom Kippur. We light neris, and we make a bracha. The Svardim is minhagim amongst Achenu Bnei Svardim, and each one should ask their local Orthodox Chacham. Each one should ask their local Orthodox Chacham. But the Minig Ashkenazim is certainly yes to make a bracha. If by mistake you made the bracha lahadik ner shel yontif, you yotzei b'diavad. But if you made the bracha lahadik ner shel Shabbos, so then you're not yotzei. And like I said, the minig is the ladies, they make a shechiyanu. So therefore, a lady should take off her shoes before she lights neiris. And she should already put on her slippers because she's going to be saying shechiyanu. With the shechiyanu is the acceptance of the day. So therefore, she shouldn't be wearing the shoes. She should already be wearing the slippers. The Sifdala, the Ramah brings down a minig Yisrael that we tzint a gezuntelicht, right? A gezuntelicht that every married man lights a ner in his house, and one ner for the married man in the house. People are very scared of this ner if it goes out, and the poskim are right away. They warn and they say, don't, Mishnah Berurah brings down already. People think for sure if this ner goes out, he's going to die. The guy sat and hacked lashon hara the entire kol nidre, but he's afraid if the candle goes out, he's going to die. Okay, like the poskim talk about somebody that sees Kerry on Yom Kippur, and they talk about he has to be doyi kol hashana if he sees Kerry the whole entire year. It's in Siman, that's actually a Siman that we didn't get to yet, but I'll say it now. In Siman Tov Reish Tes Zayin, it talks about a person that royas Kerry be Yom Kippur, he has to, if he lives that year, he knows he's the ben olam haba, and If he doesn't live that year, it's because he's okay. They come to me. There's a line out the door sometimes. Oy vey vey vey, carry oy vey 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 vey, oy vey vey vey. Right? All nervous, all this. So I always tell them the letter of the Stipler in the Kaina Digrasa. He says, Lo yida klalu klal. Kidivrei Chazal. Chazal, we're not talking about you. You sit and look. Erev Yom Kippur, you're sitting and looking on a smartphone. You don't think you're going to have carry? It would be a pella if you didn't. So such a person, and you, it's not talking about you. It's not talking about you. It's talking about a tzaddik, you say, Oilam, who has only machshavas ta'iris, and he's a mamash, a heilig mensch, and a kaddish, and what? And that person has carry. No, for such a person, so then it's taka siman. Either it's going to be a siman that he's going to live, or it's going to be a siman that he's not going to, meaning if he lives throughout the year, he's a vadeh ben olam haba, or it's going to be a siman that he's not going to live this year, and he has to be doig, and he has to do all the tikkunei tshuva and everything. So, I always tell them, you guys should do the tikkunei tshuva, learn Masech, the Kalim, and whatever, right? And maybe you should once and for all, maybe you should stop looking where Jewish eyes shouldn't look. That's my suggestion. But again, these type of things, worry more about the Averas than the Siman Ra. The greatest Siman Ra is to talk Lashon Hara. The greatest Siman Ra is to be a batlin. The greatest Siman Ra is to look where Yiddish eyes, Satanish kicking, where Yiddish eigen, Satanish kicking. That's the greatest Siman Ra. The Gabi a kittel, wearing a kittel on Shana Rishayna. It's minhagim, but Lamaisa, whoever doesn't have a minig, if he's above the age of 20, let's say he's an out the bacher that got married, he's already 20 years old. So then such a person should, if he doesn't have a minig, then he should wear a kittel. If you got married after 20, even if you're Shana Rishayna, you wear a kittel, unless you have a minig, right? Rabbi Greenberg, you have a minig or you don't know? What's your minig, yes or no? Yes to wear. Yeah, that's right. But you're above 20, you're already an out the bacher. Some stomach, out the bacher. Then you should wear. Maisa, it's not so schwer. Some of you guys should think of the Yom HaMisa once in a while. So nicht gefährlich. Ja, übertrachten the Yom HaMisa taka. Yeah, das ist. Now, the Maisa on Yontif of Yom Kippur, you're not supposed to go out of your way to have Inui. That was a Havamina in the Gemara. Right? 20 is because 20 is when he becomes a Bar Oinshin. Once he's already a Bar Oinshin, so then already that's... Now, you're not supposed to, you're supposed to have, you're not supposed to torture yourself on Yom Kippur. Don't think there's an Indian to dafka sit in the sun. I mean, there might be an Indian to daven in an outdoor minyan, right? Especially if you have to go to a hafkanah. So there might be an Indian to go to an outdoor minyan, but not to dafka suffer. There were people that they would put rocks in their shoes and things like that. There's no such thing. It's taka yontif. It's Yom Kippur. You're not supposed to do tanesim. You're not supposed to do, you're supposed to do tanesim, but you're not supposed to do sigufim. You're not supposed to do. Now, the Mishnah Berurah Tzivkot into Zion talks about the meaning of the nashim is that they wear white begodim, but they don't put on their special jewelry. Rabbi Kiva Eger discusses that perhaps by the ladies there's no problem because the ladies didn't give their gold at Chet HaEgel. So for them it's not a kateger. For the ladies it's not a kateger. The Maisa, the poskim say that they shouldn't be putting on their best jewelry. I think if I'm not mistaken, anyways, that's the meaning, is that the ladies don't wear the finest jewelry. That's the basics. They wear basic. But if they have the basic necklace that they always wear, or they have a gold watch that they always wear, not just for Shabbos, so then they can continue wearing it. Are you allowed to take Kalei Tzayim? You're allowed to. Do they work? I don't know. I'm taking it now for 80 or 90 years, and I'm still starving away. But are you allowed to take it? For sure you're allowed to take it, because the whole idea is that you're supposed to have koyach for the fast. You're supposed to have koyach, so you're supposed to do whatever you can't have koyach, that you should be able to fast, and therefore certainly you're allowed to take these pills on Erev Yom Kippur. There's no shayla, that's what it seems to say over here in Tafresh Yud Aleph. Now, Tafresh Yud Beis. We got to be eating on Yom Kippur this year. It's obviously a big topic. And so first and foremost, for Moshe Zechron Levrach has a tshuva where he says that somebody that has to eat on Yom Kippur, he shouldn't go dafka and put himself on an IV, right? He shouldn't put himself, there's no Indian to dafka put himself on an IV. First of all, it's not as good as food. And second of all, who gives you right to be chayvel in yourself? right? And and that's one nakuda. Another nakuda is if a person's eating through a feeding tube, he's called eating. He's called fasting. He's not called eating. It's something to be mechazik a person in Yom Kippur. Somebody called me yesterday actually, and he's nebach. He's in a bad matzav and he's on a feeding tube, and he was asking me different shilas and whatnot. So I told him, you're mamish miyuchatik a chayla. You're a chayla that can't eat on Yom Kippur, and you're going to be considered fasting the whole entire Yom Kippur. It's a meridik gazach, but a lot of times a person is chayli feels like here you have a miyuchadik case. He told me it makes me feel very good now because, he was so chayla and until now he was going to have to eat on Yom Kippur and say, okay, the maisa, there's no shayla if you have to eat on Yom Kippur. It's a mitzvah gedoyla to eat on Yom Kippur when a person is mechuyev to. And if a person doesn't, so then if he was supposed to eat and he doesn't eat, so then you shouldn't be maspid such a person because he's a ma'abed atzmai ladas. He's a suicidal individual. The gabe, a person that has to take pills because he's a chayla. So if he's a chayla, he's allowed to take a pill. If the only way to get the pill down is with water, so then what we tell him is he should take 4 tea bags, make it very, very concentrated with tea, very, very concentrated, and it'll be so bitter and so gefährlich that it'll take a small shear, which I'll talk about, a little shot glass dart nazar, right? And it'll drink down the pill. And then this I heard from a Falk, that when you take a bunch of tea bags and you make it very, very bitter, that's not considered a shtia. And that you could do if you can't get the pill down without it in a situation where a person has a heter to take the pill because he's considered a chayla, so then it's going to be permitted. He's allowed to smell on Yom Kippur. You're allowed to smell smelling salts, and you're allowed to smell besamim. Make sure that you don't get into the issue of a bracha levatala. If you had it and you're still in the room and you didn't have yet Hesach hadas, so then you can't make another bracha. If you walked outside and you come back and it's after, by mincha and whatnot, so then you'll be able to make another bracha on the besamim. The gabe caffeine pills, I'm not so convinced that that's permitted. If a person has a terrible, terrible headache or something and he's like a chayla, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. No, but I'm not convinced that he'll be allowed to take the Yom HaKadosh, a caffeine pill. Not so bar with the Yisr is either, but lo mekubal. Lo mekubal is also halacha. Something's not mekubal, that's also halacha. Now, the Gabe Tafrei Shud Gimel, I didn't get yet to the shiurim, so nobody should get nervous, but I'm going and say to Shulchan Aruch. In Tafrei Shud Gimel, a person, he's not allowed to wash himself. These are halachas yaduas. When you wash netilas yadayim, so then you don't have to be mamish so careful that you're only going to get to the knucklech. You could, you wash, just make sure that you're trying to get to the knuckles. If you're washing for netilas yadayim of bread, if you're washing for netilas yadayim of birchas kehanim, so then you wash the entire hand. On Motzei Yom Kippur, some have a minute to wash, but you should know some don't have a minute to wash, because in Yom Kippur you're so kaddish and so halig that you don't need to wash, because the ruach hara doesn't, the way it works every night is the ruach hara goes out of your body, and it leaves by the hand over here. That Zohar says that on Yom Kippur, like malachim, so the ruach hara goes, he wants to get out of there legamrei, so he gets all the way to the knuckles over there. He gets so all you have to do is wash off the ruach hara from the knuckles. So might say Yom Kippur, why do you have to wash your hands? Why do you have to? Some people that do, but why do you have to wash your hands? Why do you have to wash your hands? Now, if a person has to wash himself after he goes to the bathroom, he for gdolim or whatnot, that's considered saya, and that's considered shmutz. So he would be allowed to wash there. That's not considered a tainig. That's allowed. If a person has a terrible headache and he feels like, terrible, there's a heter. If he's considered a chayla, to wash his face. The person that's a chayla and he needs to go into a bath. I'm not getting involved now beside the hot water aspect. He'll get a guy or something. If he's a chayla, so then a chayla does have a heter on Yom Kippur to wash himself. And the vada lady that just had a baby will have a term to wash herself, because it's not that type of washing. It's not that type of washing. The gabe washing out your mouth, in addition to the problem that we're afraid you're going to swallow, there's also a problem of washing out your mouth, because that's also included in the Isser Rechitza. So therefore, a person shouldn't wash out his mouth. If somebody throws up on Yom Kippur Chas v'Shalom, so then he wants to wash it out. It's like washing off shmutz. So then he would be allowed to wash off. He would be allowed to wash it off. The gabe sicha, L'gabe sicha, so sicha means, what do they call it in English? What's it called? Anointing? What's it called over there? Anointing, I think. No, Rabbi Khan. Anointing? Anointing. So you're allowed to put on anti-mosquito spray on your body. L'chayra, this year, it's Nageya. You shouldn't put on deodorant. You should put on before Yom Kippur, Aboisai. Some of you should put on today. But you should put on before. Not everybody has corona, Aboisai. But you should put on before Yom Kippur. And it's very good because on the can, it says that it lasts 24 hours. Some of them even last 48 hours. Side by side, that's the best thing. But you shouldn't be putting on Yom Kippur. However, However, Alka-Gel, l'chayra, what should I tell you? No, it's not fake news. You guys just smell. But Alka-Gel, the Maisa, what should I tell you, Rabbi Isai? Obviously, this year, he's doing Alka-Gel because he's afraid that, he doesn't want to get infected or infect others. So, versteht harbe makim, the harbe makim. So, l'chayra, and that's what he should do. Okay, sometimes people get the nice ones that smell nice and he likes that. No, that on Yom Kippur, you don't have to get the fancy smelling one. You get that like dreadful smelling one. The only problem is I think the dreadful smelling one is a lot of times much more gushy and mushy, and it's much more mamreach. It's much more, yeah. So maybe you do have to get the good smelling one. What should I tell you? The shoes, discusses the shoes. The minig is, Rabbi say, you wear slippers or you don't wear shoes. You don't have to wear the fanciest non-leather shoes. You shouldn't wear a shoe that has a leather stripe. I think Nike, what's it called? Nike. I think they have that sometimes they have a shoe and it's not leather, but the stripe is leather. No, that's for those whose lives don't matter. That's not for us. On Yom Kippur, you have to wear the shoes that don't have any leather in them, not a leather insole, none of the above. L'gabe children, the minig is that once the kids are already in Gan and that they're telling you, Tati, we're not allowed to wear shoes, so then you don't put them on, the leather shoes. That's the minig. That's the minig. You don't put your child on his alligator shoes once he's already coming. You want to know if he's a baby, he's what? So how many 1-year-olds are anyways wearing shoes, right? How many 1-year-olds wear shoes? So, but you, how old are you? You're already a big girl, right? So you for sure can't wear the leather shoes on Yom Kippur, right? Okay, you have to tell Sheva also. Let me get invited. Tafresh Tetzvav, we spoke about that, was Binyan Kari. Tafresh Tetzayin, was the Indian of what age to be makbid on the children, klape the shoes. It also talks about the age of the children fasting. What's the age that the children fast? So, the Maisa, the Paiskim say from 9 years old is when you have to start to, in the morning already, they should have a couple hours. They should eat their breakfast a little bit later. Certainly if the kid is, not shtelling su, you don't have to be so makbid. Once the child is 10, 11, already 11, 12, then they for sure should be fasting till about half a day. For shteitzach, each child, kafi is matziv. Tafresh with Zayin are the halachas of a muberes. Muberes, it's hard to give these klalim in public. Menekes, muberes, it's hard to give them in public. Each case is different. Each situation the people are in are different. The norm is that a pregnant woman fasts. That's the norm. And she doesn't do shirim. Now, in each case, there's a different case. The person has to call up his case. His wife has a normal pregnancy. Everything is doing normal. She has to fast. A person is, sorry. Okay, technical difficulties. How's that? How's that? Everyone sees me still? Okay. So a woman is vomiting and throwing up, and she's terribly sick. For shteitzach, she might have a din of a chayla. And for shteitzach, we might give her a din of shurim, which the shurim we'll talk about in a moment. Each case, you have to know. Each situation, a lady that in the middle of the fast, all of a sudden she starts having a pashit. So given a ganze volcano dort rein in the Bauch dort. So given a ganze earthquake amol. So given the mamish with Kallus, with brokim, right? She hears the baby saying, "Eat." No, so if it's real, one contraction. Say try to do shiurim, which I'll talk about what the shiurim are in a moment. So, all of a sudden she hears, you start drinking. Then, the baby says, "I'm coming." Right? So these are shilas that it's hard to give these klalim in a shir like this. A menekes, a nursing woman, does have to fast. There are situations where she says the baby doesn't eat; it only eats for me, and I don't have milk if I don't drink. So we're going to probably tell her to do shiurim. We're going to have to tell her to do shiurim. You let this. Whoever has the shilah should ask within 3 days. So then the general psak is that if she doesn't have to fast within 3 days. If she says, I don't need food and I'm fine, and the doctor says she's fine, we're still going to make her do shiurim. From 3 to 7, generally the psak is shiurim. And from 7 onward, she's considered a chayla and she has to fast. But each situation has to be discussed. I'm dafka being mekatzer because those types of shilas, you have to ask in a more proper fashion. Legabe, the chaylim, and tafresh ches, the shiurim. So I just want to show you, this is what I do every Yom Kippur. I set up the shiurim. These are shot glasses, and this is you'll see one is the liquid and one is the solid, and you'll see that the liquid one, you get more, right? And the solid one, you get less. And the solid one, you get 30 cc's. I think that's like an ounce. I think that's like an ounce. And 1.2 ounces, which is 40 cc's, 40, I think it's grams, I think you say, right, is the amount for a drink. 30 is the amount of oichel. How much oichel that you can fit into here is considered, if you can fit 30 where the line goes, that's how much oichel. You can take a pretzel and you smash up the pretzel as much as you can get in there. That's as much as the shear is. Under that is allowed. By the drink, it's also. So just to show you, a person on Yom Kippur, he gets, let's say they tell him he has shiurim. Let's say he has shiurim. It's not toichen because ain't toichen nachar toichen. But let's say they tell him you have to have shiurim. So the minig hamakubal is that if the matzav is normal and he just has to do shiurim as preventative or whatever. So the minig hamakubal is we try shiurim of drink and food do not mitzdaref. So in a case of where your doctor tells you you have to drink and eat, so then you're allowed every 9 minutes to have under 40 of a liquid, and you can have grape juice too, and under 30 of a solid. And you can have both of them within the 9 minutes because it's every 9 minutes a liquid and a salad, because liquids and solids are not mitzdaref. Is that crystal clear? Because people make a mistake with that. Second of all, is that clear, everyone? Clear? Second of all, we say 9 minutes because that was the chumrah of the Chassam Sofer. That's the chumrah of the Chassam Sofer. But avada, if it's not negeya, 9 minutes is too long, then we go down. Some sheetas say 5 minutes, some sheetas say 4 minutes, some sheetas say all the way to 2 minutes. By liquid, some sheetas say even a minute. And these are all things that have to be discussed. I just want to show you. We're talking about this amount of liquid here. This is the liquid, I think, this one. Yeah, this is the liquid one. You're talking about that amount, right? Chaim. That amount. Now, legabe corona. Who does shiurim bekesher to corona? Who doesn't? Who does? What's the matter? First of all, the most important thing, klape corona, is not necessarily a test result. It's, do you have symptoms? And that's more important than anything. Because if the person didn't take a test, we don't say that if you didn't take a test, then you don't have any of the terim. And who are then the opposite? If you take a test, it doesn't mean that right away you have a terim. So the first and foremost is the symptoms. Now, it's makubal that different doctors, right? And I wrote down over here, after speaking to different doctors, that this is my basic psak, what I've been telling people, that if there are symptoms, what are the symptoms that we're talking about? We're talking about fever of 38 degrees. Oh, I forgot what that is for the Americans. What's 38 degrees? 5 plus 32. I think it's like 99 and a half, no? Not 101, no? 100.5? 100, I think, 100.5. Okay. About 100. So about 100. But kids, if you're holding by 100 temperature or 38 degrees, so then that's one symptom. Or if a person is extremely weak, that's considered a symptom. Or if he's having difficulty breathing, that's considered a symptom. The lack of the lack of taste and the lack of smell and no other issue is not considered a symptom to warrant breaking a fast. But if it gets worse, coughing is considered a symptom. Now, one that has this of the above symptoms that I just mentioned after talking to different doctors, if you have, let's say, two of those symptoms, he has fever and he has a difficult cough, or he's very, very weak and he's difficult in breathing. If you have those symptoms and you're above the age of 35, so then you should be doing shiurim. That's Gefi the psak that I got from my doctors. How much is the shiurim? This is a liter. This bottle's liter. This bottle is half a liter. This is half a liter. It says 500 cc's. You should be drinking over the course of a day a half a liter, this amount of a liquid over the course of a day, which throughout the day, you do the shiurim of liquids. You don't need more than liquids. Obviously, if there's different situations, you have to ask. I'm talking in a general situation, right? Once you have two symptoms, he's coughing, he has fever, or he's weak and he has fever, or he's weak and he's coughing terribly, like that type of a matziv, and he's above 35, so then he should be drinking half a liter throughout the day, obviously, in the oifen of shiurim. If he's under the age of 35, so then you have to see his matziv. If he's getting, to a matziv of where he feels a weakness more, more of a weakness, and it's, more than the norm, so then he should do shiurim. And if he has a suffix, he should do shiurim. But he doesn't need probably more than half a liter. Obviously, it's difficult to give these klalim in public. So somebody wants to ask, he could ask. But that's the basic idea. Certainly a muberes or a yoledes, a lady that just had a baby, right? Then we're going to be mischashiv much more and probably tell her if she has corona to certainly be drinking half a liter. Certainly we'll be telling her to drink half a liter. A lady just called. She had a baby just now. So we're trying to make the cheshbon, right? It looks like, she just had a baby today and it's Wednesday. So that means it's going to be Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, Sunday. By the time the Yom HaKadosh hits, she'll be between 3 and 7. And she has corona. So I told her, most probably you are not fasting on Yom Kippur, right? She says, she's feeling weak, but she doesn't know. I said, most probably you're not fasting on Yom Kippur, but you should call an Erev Yom Kippur if she's feeling great and fabulous and whatever. And the doctor says, then we're going to probably tell her to do shiurim. But we're probably also not going to tell her to just have half a liter. We're going to probably tell her to have at least a liter. Somebody that has breathing trouble, or if he has a temperature of above 39, so then such a person, breathing trouble means those things that they give out is you have, let's say, like 93%. If a person has under 93% or under 94%, so then he has to make sure that he certainly is drinking. He has to drink at least a liter, right? And there's more to this, Rabbi side, but it's difficult to give these klalim in this type of a fashion. And he also has to talk to his doctor and has to run it past the doctor. Somebody told me today that his matziv is, again, you have to call back in a few days from now. He told me his matziv is that he has slight breathing issues and he's around 93, his oxygen level's around 93%. If that's going to be his matziv, his doctor told him he can't fast on Yom Kippur. His doctor is not religious, and his doctor is, not necessarily somebody that, we have to find out. Was his doctor saying something about this person specifically, or is his doctor saying something about the klal? Because the klal, the doctors, even the non-religious ones, are saying that not necessarily does he have to drink properly the whole entire day. It might be enough for him to just have a liter throughout the day. But again, more than this, I can't give in a public fashion. And anybody who has the shaila, so he should have her for a shlema, and he should ask the shaila privately. Just two more things, everybody say. Two more things before we go into a little bit in the, maybe just a little musar. Excuse me. Excuse me. So kol nidre. Kol Nidre, don't forget that the minig halavai will be zeichel to be in shuls. But if not, the minig is that you kiss the Sefer Torah and you mevakesh mechila from the Sefer Torah. What I was poigim in the Sefer Torah, what I was poigim in the Torah. This year, if you're not able to kiss the Sefer Torah, you should still ask mechila from the Sefer Torah. If you're going to be in your house and you won't be in a shul, you go over to the Shas, you go over to the Mishnah Berurah, you go over to the Shulchan Aruch, and you give a big kiss to the Mishnah Berurah, you give a big kiss to the Shulchan Aruch, you give a big kiss to the Gemara, to Shas, to Paiskim, and you say, I'm sorry, and this year I'm going to treat you better. And I was Paigim in the cover of your Torah, and this year I'm going to treat you better. The Kol Nidre itself, the person could say it by himself if he has no choice. He'll say it by himself. You're supposed to try to say it miboid yoim, so that all the nedarim are nisbatel as you go into the Yom Kippur. That's the minhag, to try and say it for shteitzach. You're supposed to try to make sure that you, that you put on your talis before Shkia and before you makabel the yontif. In order, you should be able to make a bracha on the talis. The Chasam Sofer had a chumrah. On Yom Kippur, we accept the chumras. The Chasam Sofer had a chumrah that in Yom Kippur, he made, when he said the bracha of Mikadesh Yisrael, the Yom Kippurim, he had kavanah that he's being yotzei kiddush because there's no kiddush on Yom Kippur. Excuse me. I'm not going to talk about bris milah. There is one thing which I found to be a shtickle pella, is that I saw in the Oitza Bris, he brings down that the moil, after he does the metzitza, he doesn't wash out his mouth. Whoa. Official, is that the minhag? He wrote back, wow. No, I didn't say wow. I said, whoa. Whoa. I don't know. Let me get weiter. Yizker. So the minhag of the minhag Yizker, it's interesting. The reason it's called Yom Kippurim is because it's a kapara on the nifter, the niftarim, and on the chayim. Yom Kippur is not just mechaper on the lebedika, on the people that are alive. It's also mechaper on those that are not alive. There's a big minhag shaila if a person in the first year does he say Yizker or not? It's totally minhagim. Whoever doesn't have a minhag, so then he's supposed to say Yizker even in the first year. He's supposed to be posik tzedakah b'shas the Yizker. You should say b'li neder, but you should still do it. B'li neder, it doesn't mean I swear I'm not going to do it. B'li neder means I just don't want it to be chala neder. But the person certainly has to try to be mekayim that. The Indian of getting mafter yoina, the inner Indian of getting mafter yoina is that the person here, the Premishlani used to say is because he hears the words Malach Nirdam. So even if a person's not zeicha to buy them after Yaina, but it should certainly toifus the Indian of the Yaina, which is Malach Nirdam. It's already holding by the Mincha of Yom Kippur. And you're still sleeping. He just laid the arayis, and he has to, when he hears the laying of the arayis, he has to chapatziter. This year is going to be different. This year I'm going to bathe in kedusha. I'm going to be a heilige yid this year. This year I'm going to look only where Yiddish Eigen are supposed to look at. I'm only going to listen what Yiddish Eigen are supposed to listen to. When he listens to the arayis, he has to have a sense of direction, of kedusha, of taira. Imagine the schus on Yom Kippur, that a person, when he listens to the laning of the arayis, he says, this year is going to be different. I'm going to be goider myself from the arayis this year. The person that misses mincha, sometimes the person is so not well at the end of the tainus, and he misses mincha. There's tashlumim for the mincha. He'll daven 2 myris, but there's no tashlumim for the ne'ilah. Sorry. I'm sorry. Different minhagim, duchening, you're supposed to try to have it before Shkia. And that's the different. And Haggis, before Havdalah, if a person needs to drink, they're allowed to drink. That's very important to tell the women folk that if they're not able to wait for their husband to come home, so in the Frayim, that they could they don't have to make Havdalah, they could just drink. But if they have to wait for their husband, he's all the way, he's there outside of Uman, by the fence trying to get in, and he's not coming back to make Havdalah for another chves. They also has to get out of jail first. It's not going to be simple. So Mela, she's allowed to make Avdallah if the need be. When it comes to the candle, the Bayre Ma'ira Eish and Mitzvah Kippur, you must make sure to try to have a candle that was Shoivis the entire Yom Kippur. This is separate from the Gezintelech, because you're not supposed to make the Bayre Eish on a nair that was not lit for the purpose of being mayor and was being made was lit for the purpose of a neshama, of a lebedik neshama, of a titan neshama. You're supposed to have a candle which was lit expressly for that purpose. That's lechatchila. But the Eved, if he doesn't have that candle, so then he's allowed to take off a fire from a candle that was lit for, like the Gezintelech or something like that, which was lit not for the purpose of being mayor, but that's B'di'evet. And the B'di'evet, if he has no choice, he's even allowed to light a fire on his stove and take off from that fire. But that's B'di'evet. Lechatchila, you take a candle, an Erev Yom Kippur, you set up a 24-hour candle, one for the Gezintelech and one for yourself to have. That a Mitzvah Yom Kippur, you can make on that one a Bayre Ma'ire Ha'esh. Okay. He doesn't have to light 2 candles. He should use 2 wicks, but he doesn't have to light 2 candles for that purpose. You have to make sure that Mitzvah Yom Kippur, we build the sukkah and try to make sure to keep your begotten clean. You have a new lease on life and you keep them clean. Somebody asked me, why do we say Slach Lanu? We just came out of Yom Kippur. Why do we say Slach Lanu? I told them, go sit down and you can count about 300 Averas that you could do from the point of where they sang Lashana Abba Yerushalayim all the way until Shemona Esrei. It's about 300 Averas. And the smallest of them is not having Kavan and Shema. But try to keep your begodim clean. Try to keep your begodim clean. And then you go into the sukkah. And then it will be certainly, Bez Hashem, a good gebench to your halavai. Just, excuse me. Danny, you separate the shear. I'm holding here a sefer called the Mekache Hashem, the Chuvas Mekache Hashem. The sefer was given to me 10 years ago from Rav David Halpern, to Rav in London. It's a sefer that his Shver wrote. His Shver was the Weizener Rav. Shver was the Weizener Rav. Rav Tzvi Hirsch Meislish. He's a big guy. He was later on in life, after he was in Bergen-Belsen, and then afterward he was in Chicago. He was a great guy and a big guy. In this sefer, his Chuvas excuse me. In his Chuvas farm, he has over here in the Akadama, Shreklecha Akadama. Shreklecha Akadama. I think the story over here is somewhat famous, and I won't be myrich on the chelik of the story, which is famous. But there's an addition to the story which was recently told to me, which I don't think is so famous, and it's not brought over here in his Chuvas. He was brought to Auschwitz, Chmana Litzlan, and it came known to them that on Rosh Hashanah, the Rishayim Yimach Shemai are going to be killing 1,400 children. He's Myrich over here in the graphic, Noira, horrific oifen, what exactly the tzura of how those children were chosen, Noira, the way it's written over here. And they were all taken, and they knew that they were going to be coming to be Makadesh Shem Shemayim, Hashem the Sefer, the Chuvas Makadesh Hashem, on Rosh Hashanah. He had a shofar. This Yid, Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Meislish, the Weizen Ruf, he had a shofar. And he went around and he blew, you read it over here, it's not to be believed. He blew in Gehenim 20 times 100 Kallus. He went all over. Obviously, it would have been a penalty of death for him and for all those that were with him. And he went around and he blew the shofar 20 times in Gehenim Elaine. unbelievable. And the children that were in this block found out that the Weizen Rav had a shofar, and they begged him that he would come there and blow shofar. So versteht sich, Sayyid hat gebeten, so he came there, and he was about to blow the shofar. They told him they want a shmuz, a Chizuk shmuz, and he gave them a shmuz. And the shmuz he said over was that even if a person has a knife on his neck, al yimane atzmei min harachamim, the Eibishter is takakulei rachamim, and afilu cherev chadam unechas. And he writes over here, he writes how there was a bacher that got up, and the bacher said that that's true, afilu cherev chadam unach, but l'maisa, their face, who knows if we're going to be in the same yeshiva das, in the same frame of mind, that when we go to see our parents in Shemayim, our mamas, our tatas, the babas, the siblings that were already butchered by the Gehenim, by the Rishayim Gehenim, who knows if we'll be in the frame of mind to be saying the Shema Yisrael properly. So let's all now be makabel all malchus Shemayim. And he writes over here how the bechiyas and how the clarity of mind, and how they were ready to see their parents, and how the incredible Kiddush Hashem, Noah Saga, 1400 Bachrim, Tyra Bachrim, with Noah Saga. And then he writes about the Tkiyas and Noah Saga. And that's a story which, if I'm not mistaken, is somewhat famous. I think it's somewhat known, the story, the Weizen Rav. And he writes over there how it was an awesome Kiddush Hashem. Recently, somebody told me, in addition to that story, apparently there was one survivor of those 1,400 Bachrim. It's not written over here. There was one survivor of those 1,400 Bachrim. And the story he told over was that he remembered when the Weizen Rav came in. And the Weizen Rav asked, is there anybody here that can, say the bracha? He had already blown the shofar 20 times. And he didn't want to be moitzi somebody else if they're able to make the bracha themselves. So this bacher got up and he said that he knows the bracha. So the Weizen Rav said to him, "Versteht sich, you know the bracha, but so he said his father was a chazan, I think, maybe the Rav, the chazan, and his father, he knows his father's nigunim. So the Weizen Rav told him, could he also say over the Min HaMeitzer? So he said he could say over the Min HaMeitzer, and he could say over the Lam Natseach. And this bacher got up in front of all these bachrim and said the Lam Natseach. He said over Min HaMeitza Karasi Go Anoni Bamerchavyo, and he said the whole nigin, and he said it with the Geshayim, with the Gevein, and it was ma'oyer everybody in the whole entire tzibur. And the bacher said over that when he made the bracha, when he said that bracha, he said that it was mamish, you felt in the room, you felt the awesome, what is Klal Yisrael? What is Kasa? He said after the Tkiyas, he looked over on the side and there was a capo there. Imagine what's a capo, person that was able to be so hardened, such a kalti neshama. And he noticed that the capo had been crying. The capo's name was Leibish. And this capo Leibish had been crying. And he didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, this capo comes over to him and he says to him like this. He tells him, I just gave $20 as a bribe I was a shliach to go and save, excuse me. I was a shliach to bribe one of the Nazis to give him $20 to save a life, to save one of the bachrim. So once I realized that $20 is how much it costs to save a bacher, so I gave also $20, and I also saved your life. Excuse me. I gave $20 to save your life. So the bacher, who had been part of this awesome Kiddush Hashem, and had already prepared themselves that they're going to see their parents in Shemayim, he said he won't leave the other bacher. So this Leibish, this kappa, he said to him, no, I already gave the money, and you're free, and you're not going to be murdered with these other bacher. So he said, I'm not going. He said, in all the years that he remembered that he had been grabbed in the camps by the Nazis, he said he never ever felt such a grab. This capo grabbed him, took him, lugged him over like a piece of meat, and ran out of the barracks with him and took him and threw him on the floor. And he said, if you go near there again, I'll beat you and I'll hurt you. You're free. Kanira, he gave a tremendous chizuk to this capo. He gave a tremendous iris to this capo, and the capo saved him. The capo freed him and saved his life. Excuse me. And the capo saved his life. The Bacher later that night went back to say goodbye to his friends. He went to say goodbye to his friends. And there he was on the outside. He said over the story, he was on the outside of the barracks. And he saw, and he was on the outside of the barracks, and he saw he saw his friends, and his friends knew that he was being saved and that they weren't going to, so his friends told him, we'll send regards to your parents in Shemayim. All of a sudden, the capo, Leibish, sees him by the barracks. And he says to him, I told you, if you go back there, I'm going to beat you. And he started running after him. And he told him, listen, he said to him, when I was in there, so then I didn't want to leave. But I'm not crazy enough to go back. He said afterward, the person told over the story, he said that years later, before the Weizen Rav was nifter, he met the Weizen Rav, and he took the Weizen Rav's hand, and he said, I'm the hand of the Bacher that blew the shofar in the camp. But he said that the Weizen Rav almost fainted. He said, you never thought you'd shake my hand again. And that was the end of the story. On Erev Yom Kippur, we're sitting Erev Yom Kippur, a few days before Yom Kippur. We had a Rosh Hashanah. That we had an Eima, and we have a Pachad. And we have a Rosh Hashanah that, especially this year, that we understand what's a Miyichya and what's a Miyamas. And that the Rebbeinu Shalom this year, through the Eima and through the Pachad, has given us a tremendous chizuk to take us and schlep us a race from the Avedas and to take us out of Averis. And it's very difficult for us sometimes to leave the Averis. And on Rosh Hashanah, and certainly in the Seres Tshuva, we've made achlotis. We've made clear achlotis that we don't want to go back to that Avera. And the Rebbeinu Shalom this year, he grabbed us out. He took us out. He took us away from the Aveda. He took us away from the Yetzer Hara. And most of us this year have a pachad and an eima that we never had. People that weren't able to daven in shuls, people that lost parents, people that lost parnasses this year. A matziv that in the lifetime of most of the people in Klal Yisrael, they've never seen such midas adin. The midas adin is a schlepping and taking us out and telling us you have to leave the Aveira. And most of us, we were schlepped a rois on Rosh Hashanah, and we're being schlepped a rois on Seres Tshuva, a time period that in Eretz Yisrael, we're being told that we can't even daven in the shul, and that we might not be able to go to the shul in Yom Kippur and hear Kol Nidrei. And we're being schlepped out. The Rebbeinu Shalom is taking us away from the Aveda, and he's grabbing us away, and he's holding us, and he's throwing us, and he's telling us, don't you dare go back to the Aveda. And that's our matziv right now. Most of us are in a situation of where we're taken away from the Aveda. And we've been mechazik ourselves. We must make sure that when Yom Kippur comes, that we are not going to be, oh no, I'm a shugana gate sarik to the Avera. Only somebody that's crazy goes back to the Avera. We're out of it, Rabbi Isai, from the pachad, from the matziv. There's not a person in Klal Yisrael that doesn't feel that these are the footsteps of Mashiach. There's nobody that doesn't feel that the matziv that we're in is the Rebbeinu Shalom telling us in the loudest voice, do tshuva. And most of us have come to Akara that we have to change our ways. We have to be moisif ourselves in Torah, Chizuk in Torah, in a Ben Adam L'Chaveidai, in the way that we daven in our Shmir Seinayim, living a life of Heiligkeit, a life of Kedusha, looking where Yiddish eyes should look. Most of us have been schlepped the rois from Aveira, and we thank the Rebbeinu Shalom that he grabbed us and he threw us on the floor. And then it's going to start the year, the day after Yom Kippur. Night already after Yom Kippur and the 4 days before Sukkot, and already is going to start the year. Only a Meshugana goes back inside to the world of Aveira and the world of the Yetzer Hara. Only a crazy person goes back inside. We must remember the feelings that we're feeling now, and the decisions, and the achlotas, and the kabbalas. We have to remember, Rabbi Isai, it's been a difficult year. in this year, we saw the Midas Adin from the Rebbeinu Shalom. We have to ask the Rebbeinu Shalom, like the Barditcheva before the Tkiyas Shofar. The Barditcheva can't say, normal people can't say this, but the Barditcheva said, Rebbeinu Shalom, your noig developed this year with the Midas Adin and was hota from them. And what do you have from that? What do you have from that? We know that there's children at risk and there's kids at risk all around. We hear all about the kids at risk, especially today, especially in the Matziv, kids that weren't in yeshiva for so many months. If I say, never ever did any of those children come back mikoyach din. They all come back because of rachamim. So we tell the Rebbeinu Shalom, we're all your children at risk. What are we, Rebbeinu Shalom? Every one of us wants to have a connection, more of a closeness to the Heilige Bashefer. No one ever came back with dins of the Heilige Bashefer. They only come back from rachamim. So we have to bet the Eibishter this year that it should be a year of rachamim. And you have to understand, Rabbi say, the Rebbeinu Shalom is the Avinu av harachamim. Everything that you saw last year is rachamim, but it's the Maisa, the horrific Maisa in the Lodge ghetto, the horrific Maisa that there was Nebuch lied that there was a lady on that day that they liquidated the ghetto and they took away the children from the ghetto. So there was a lady that was running after her children in order to get back her children that were taken by these Nazi beasts, Yimach Shemam. And the Nazi, when this lady was running after her two children, the Nazi decided he's going to have a little bit of fun with her. So the Nazi said, okay, look, you have two children over here in the wagon. Choose one. And she sat there and both of the children, they were begging her, please, mommy, save me, please. And both of them were begging and she didn't know what to do with herself. And the Nazi Machshemai just laughed and just left. Zoktapanovich Rav. What does it mean when we say kirachim av albonim? Why don't we say kirachiv aim albonim? We know that the mama's rachamim is much more than the father's rachamim. So what would the father have done in that situation? The father would have closed his eyes and grabbed one of the children, and it would have been rachamim because he knew what he had to do. And the mother wasn't able to do that. So we say Rebbeinu Shalom kirachim av albonim. We know that you're filled with rachamim, and we know that a lot of what went on this year, what we saw, Midas Adin, we know this was Rachamim, and we know this with the Cheshbin. But Rebbeinu Shalom, we need Kuloi Rachamim, and was Hotam from the Midas Adin. How many children came back from Midas Adin, but they all come back from Rachamim. So this year, only someone that is crazy will go back into that world. Nobody with Seichel will go back into the world of the Yetzer Hara. Nobody with Seichel will go back into the world of Aveda. Only a Meshuggah negates the victory. Rebbeinu Shalom schlepped us out this year with us Eifel Midas Adin. He schlepped us out with so much Midas Adin. But only a Meshuggah will go back. Only a Meshuggah will go back. And we asked Rebbeinu Shalom, it should be a year of Midas Harachamim. How many Yidden, Rabbi say hundreds of thousands of Yidden screamed Mina Meitza Karasiya Anani Bamerchavya when the shofar was blowing. It has koyach of rachamim, but only if you make achlotas that we're not going to go back to the Yetzer Hara and they're not going to go back to the ways of the Rishis, the ways of Aveira. Everybody was schlepped out this year. Make sure you don't go back. And then the Rebbeinu Shalom will shower us down with Midas Harachamim. He'll shower us down with Midas Harachamim. The Rebbeinu Shalom, he has so much pain from all that's going on in the world. He's giving back, hey, Kirachim Aval Bonim. He has the Rebbeinu Shalom. Let's try to year and Rachamim. It should be a year of only Rachamim. Not just a Rachamim, Aval Abonim. It should be a year where we should see Rachamim. If we're holding by a matzah of a on Erev Yom Kippur, and they're talking that they're not going to be able to go to shul, if that's what they're talking about, Rabbi say, so then if you're not going to be Messiah now, then you'll never be Messiah in your whole life. Have to be Messiah now. As they feel Midas Adin in the world, and we know that Kirachem Aval Bonim, the Rebbeinu Shalom is Kula Rachem. Sometimes the Rebbeinu Shalom has to do things that look like this Midas Adin, but it's being done with Rachamim. Maybe he's doing this to finally get us to be Messiah. Maybe he's doing this that will finally do tshuva. Everybody, what kind of a schus would it be now if Yidden Erev Yom Kippur said, this year, I'm not going to be Mevatel Torah. I'm going to be Moisev Seder. I'm going to come to davening on time. I will not look where Yiddish eyes shouldn't look. How much of a schus it'll be for Klal Yisrael. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is waiting for that one year to do it and to bring in all that rachamim. Halavai, v'etchayna beser year, the better year for uns, for the Chabura, for the Kailul, for the Talmidim, for the grace of Talmidim, that I've learned more from the Talmidim, especially this year. Yosim Rabbi Isai, for everybody in Klal Yisrael. And Halavai, there'll be so much rachamim this year. And finally, the Rebbeinu Shalom will bring the Mashiach Tzidkeinu, b'meira b'yameinu, amen. I thank you again that we get together every single day. And Bez Hashem, thank you, Danny. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And Bez Hashem, we'll go back on Ben Azmanim. We'll go back to the Erev Yontif schedule. Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif. We'll have a shiur on Parshas Hazinu, for example, tomorrow. We'll send out an email, but I think it'll be at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock Eretz Yisrael time. I think we'll send out an email 4 o'clock Eretz Yisrael time, 9 o'clock. A 10-minute short thing on the Parsha. Mr. Hashem will do it also next Friday. And the next Friday, Bez Hashem, Yom Kippur is too difficult. Erev Yom Kippur is going to be too difficult. But we'll do it this Friday, and we'll do it next Friday, Bez Hashem. And next week, next month, Bez Hashem, Rabbi Sai, the Kallus will get weiter. Bez Hashem, there'll be a Sach Rachamim. Bez Hashem, Halavai, Chavetz Chaim will give the shiur Psicha. Reb Moshe will give the next year. Maybe they'll let me give a Chazara shiur. Who knows? Bez Hashem. And Bez Hashem will be together in the Kollel, in the normal life in Bez Hashem. We're going to learn Hilchos Muktzah the next month and give great nachas ruach and great pleasure to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Unmute my brothers that I can say